G'day there, Lisa. Welcome to the other side of the microphone today. So you're joining me on my podcast instead of the other way around. So welcome and thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Daniel. It's great to talk to you again.
Now, I appeared on your podcast, the WITGirls Podcast, I think from memory 35 and 51, maybe.
Correct.
Now, for everybody watching and listening to this episode, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you've come from, and what's keeping you busy right now.
Cool. So, my name is Lise Rasmussen, and I work as a Microsoft 365 consultant here in Stockholm, Sweden. I have worked with SharePoint for many years now. I dare almost not say how many, but it's
Come on,
18,
how many?
18 plus.
No, 18 plus, well, you beat me.
How long have you worked with this, Daniel?
13. So you've got me covered well and truly.
Yeah, you're just in your young teens. I'm getting like adult soon, turning into the 20s.
So you've seen it all, fair to say.
Oh yeah, I've been working with SharePoint since 2003 version and up to, of course, SharePoint Online, and worked with Microsoft 365 the last 5-6 years or so. And it's a great learning curve. It's a constant learning curve, and I really enjoy that. I work with many different areas, like going from server, IT Pro, administration, all that, and obviously moving into SharePoint Online, building more solution focused, and setting up intranets and working with Teams and all the other amazing apps that's in the Microsoft 365 world. And I think that's something that's been great with this, is that you have also access now to work with Power Apps, automate Teams, and all the other apps in the 365 world, which is great and makes this job even more fun, I think.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. There's a lot of, stepping out of the SharePoint realm, obviously, into this entire platform. And it was interesting. I was talking to Dan Holm just recently on a previous episode, and he was talking more about the experiences that we can have and provide end customers with now, instead of just looking at siloed products. So I'm assuming that you're experiencing, pardon the pun, experiencing a similar thing where you're focusing on providing experiences to customers as opposed to delivering a SharePoint engagement or things like that. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, that's a great thing. I mean, okay, I can still get some assignments sometimes for working with on-prem stuff, but then it's more like purely IT Pro things, like going into a server, do some troubleshooting and all that. Someone got stuck in the search or something. But when working with SharePoint Online and Microsoft 365 and all the apps there, you more focus on delivering like effective products or apps or solutions, and you can work with more with the product without having to worry about the technology behind and all that troubleshooting and stuff. So I think my work role has changed a lot, and you work closer to the business and to the users. So that has changed a bit, I think, since starting to work with Microsoft 365.
And I was listening to your the last episode of your podcast, actually, and you were talking about a number of different engagements that you're currently undertaking now, and one of them is an intranet project, which I found quite interesting, in that there was the need for multiple different languages, which is one part of the project as well. Tell me a little bit about, first of all, the intranet itself. What was the main driver in this organization, I guess, needing or wanting an intranet in the first place?
Yeah, so this is a common situation that they are having an intranet on like an Epi server or something similar, and it has been outdated, and they have bought these Microsoft 365 licenses. And so now they have access to SharePoint Online, and then they obviously want an intranet in that, so you can keep everything together in one environment and on one platform. So the need comes from migration into a SharePoint Online solution. So we had workshops with, getting all the requirements from the customer, and also making sure that they cover all the things. Often they make like surveys to the organizations, what are you missing, what you find is hard to find, searching for information and so on, and bringing all that into this new intranet. So they tend to be quite big. And in this case, we also had 5 languages. So the default should be English, because that is the company's language, is English. And then they wanted to have in all the Nordic languages also. So that was a bit of a challenge to set up that. Because, we have the built-in translation functionality in SharePoint, that you can have your intranet, and then you can switch between the different languages on the right-hand side, on the page. But of course, if you are visiting as a Swedish user, you would immediately see the Swedish page. You don't have to switch then. You do that if you want to see the other language pages. And we thought, cool, then we can set up all the sites with this language control. But it turned out it was a bit hard for the editors to understand how they should build this, because translation works like this. If you have a site and you set up that site to be in 4 other languages, like in this case, you need to create all the content default in English. And then you hit the translation button, and then you make a copy of that content in all the other languages. Because if you create a default page, for instance, in Swedish, then that will be displayed everywhere for any user in any language. It won't have that default English page. So that turned out to be a bit difficult. So we ended up with having to build local sites for each language. So you can imagine, like, HR had 4 extra sites, finance had 4 extra sites, communication 4 extra, and so on. And then those group pages would only be in English, so that we could not make these mistakes that someone is posting a news that just one of the language people can read, because it was not in English. So it ended up with being around 100 sites on this intranet.
Yeah.
So then we figured, how should we then differentiate these news from each other? Because if I'm a Swedish visitor on the internet, I only want to see the Swedish news. Of course, I can go in and visit the other countries if I want to, but default, I would like to see my own. So we decided then to build 80 groups for each country. And then all the employees were put in the Swedish, the Norwegian, and the Danish, and so on. And then we had those as audience targeting groups instead on the news.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we ended up doing a manual language translation using audience targeting groups, which works also perfectly fine.
Yeah. That's ended up being a good solution then. So how does that work then? So each language, you just publish their own news. Is that how that works? And they all and then you've got a common landing page or a common intranet site that then you're using the audience targeting to then display the correct news to the right user.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And one of my colleagues, he developed a solution so that the editors didn't have to go in and add that audience target group manually. They were prepared into the sites. So he has built some sort of webhook in the background that deploys those target groups into the news. So if a Swedish editor goes into their site and they post the news, the audience target group is already on that news. So they don't have to go in and add that all the time.
Yeah, understand. No, that's good. And that's been up and running for quite some time now, or is this a new rollout, or?
It's just rolled out the 23rd, so it's been out 5 days.
Oh, right. Oh, good work.
Yeah, but I think it went well. When you don't get any questions or anything, the only thing was around people, knew, because this is a large organization, obviously, it's more like 10,000 users. So they had to email out an instruction with how to set up MFA and all that stuff. So it was more the IT department was getting questions on how to set up their account and so on. But when it came to the intranet, people said that they could more easily find information, with these big, nice new mega menus and so on. So I think it was a success.
Excellent. So you've been working with SharePoint for as you said, a very long time, 15 years. Now, how have you seen now the impact of Microsoft Teams throughout, I guess, well, especially the last 24 to 36 months, that sort of time frame? Are you doing a lot more work inside of and with Microsoft Teams now?
Yeah, and I must say, when Teams came out, I was a little bit disappointed because I have been working hard for people using metadata on documents, because I know it's a powerful thing. And I also know that no users wants it. So it's been a difficult journey. And when Teams came out and I saw that the Files tab was using folders, I was like, oh, well, why should I then struggle? So I totally reside on that one, and I've accepted that we are going to use folders again, and maybe just use metadata on very steering documents, like policies and instructions, and those more like where you have a real site for proper, more static documents. But when it comes to working documents, you can only look at yourself. Folders is the way to go. So yeah, having said that, so now we are seeing more and more teams popping up, and people have up to 20, 25 channels within each team. I think it's getting harder and harder to find information. So that's one of the downsides. But on the other side, I like Teams because it is the glue keeping everything together. And you can embed so many things on the tabs so that people don't have to leave the Teams context, which is really nice. And now with Viva Connections, which you talked about in my show, by the way. Do you remember that?
Yes,
we talked about the whole Viva platform.
Viva Topics, and then and Viva Connections, correct? That was a while ago. It's come along a little bit further since then. So you've been doing a little bit of work with Viva Connections as well. I think before we hit record, we were talking about a couple of customers that you've rolled that out to, and tell me a little bit about how that's gone and how it's been adopted, and any any tips or tricks or things like that people should look out for or when you're deploying it.
Yeah, so there's quite a massive PowerShell script that you need to run when enabling the Viva Connections. For these customers, I've been sitting with a person at the IT department and walking through this script step by step. I don't think you should just run it as it is. You need to make it sequential running, and then prepare all the information you need to have, like the logos ready. And Microsoft has a very good guide for how to do this. The only thing I lack is a logo for dark mode, or if it's light mode. I can't remember which one, but you can only have one. So in Teams, I always use dark mode, and I think my logo looks good in that. But you can't have,
one for both.
Yeah, and that was a bit strange. I thought maybe that would be changed. So you need to run that script, and that's quite complex, and you need to know what you're doing when you run that. But after that has been finalized, it can take up to 24 hours before this button shows up in Teams where you have your company logo. And what happens is when you click on that logo, you will get your intranet into Teams. So the whole home site with the landing page will show up there. Fantastic. And if you click the button once again, you will see your mega menu if you have chosen to have that as your global navigation on your SharePoint site. Mm-hmm. And then you have files and news and documents. That's the same thing. Files and news. And you can also have resources. So you can have like videos from Stream and so on deployed there. And everything is around the user. So it's a personal experience. And this is very good. So you don't have to leave Teams to go in and see your intranet, read the news, and you reach your files. Because in Teams up until now, you've only been able to search and find the teams that were stored in Teams. But now you can find the files from your other SharePoint sites also if you have, from the intranet and so on.
So are you finding that that's the main driver when you're talking to organizations about, Viva Connections? The main driver is just bringing that intranet
Yeah.
content into Microsoft Teams and not, obviously that's meaning that the users aren't having to switch context, change out to a different application, go to the intranet and into a different browser or a tab or anything like that, and it's just in the place where they're working.
Yeah, absolutely. And they love it. They were like, wow, they were so excited when they saw this button. And I can say that they had to like start over Teams a few times, log in and out. And we were like sitting there when we were launching, like, when is it coming, the new button? So there is a process between the script I told you. You need to like, then you will get the outcome as a zip file, which you need to upload into the Teams admin center. So there are a few steps more than I mentioned before you can make it come into Teams and get available for or all the organization. So there are a few steps more. But once you do that, I know that they really appreciated having that, because maybe they don't have these, when they open the browser, that they come to the intranet immediately. I don't know if maybe there was not a GPO that supported that, and maybe they don't have that habit of going to an intranet. But now when they are working in Teams, they start their day in Teams, they can just reach the intranet easily on that button. So I think it's really a success with Viva Connections.
Yeah. And how are you seeing the usage of Teams with your customers? Is it still, they're just scratching the surface with the use? It might be just for, chats at the moment or online meetings or things like that. And it's now sort of expanding out into and looking at different ways in which they can leverage the platform now. Because, what I've found, and I've spoken to a number of people about this, is that, traditionally, moving to Office 365, it used to be the traditional, move your email in, you've got Outlook, and that's your entry point into Office 365, basically. But now, over this period of time, people have found themselves having to work from home and have kind of been forced into this hybrid work model. And I won't say being forced into using Teams, but Teams has enabled them to work remotely in a different way. And now what I'm tending to see is that they're kind of starting with Teams, and now they're looking at the rest of the 365 platform and asking, well, what else can we use it for now?
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that, because the last week I attended a workshop together with Microsoft for a customer here in Stockholm. And the whole purpose for this was this customer, they were like 25-ish people in this workshop from all the different departments in the company. So they were no IT people. They were like people from HR and economy and all those departments in this company. And they wanted us to inspire them. What can we do more with the Power Platform, for instance? So this was a bit focused on the Power Platform, because I had run a demo for them a while ago where I showed a Power App I built. And they were so curious, and they wanted these people in this workshop to get inspiration. What problems do we have in our organization? What do we need an app for? Why can't we solve the problem in this way instead? So, starting their creative thinking, and how can we then use Power Platform to solve these problems? So maybe they wanted to have like a chatbot for HR. They get all these common questions. Instead of building a boring PDF file or a page, just a static page with Q&A, they could instead build a simple chatbot. So a person could ask, hey, what are my payment rules, or sickness leave, or anything, all those questions that HR get constantly. So then you can build a chatbot instead. So they could see how easy you can set up a chatbot. I show them how you can build a Power App using Power Automate and store information in SharePoint. So the whole idea was to inspire and to get them start thinking about problems they could solve in their company. So I think that they are starting to look a bit beyond now just Teams. They want to explore all the other apps in Office 365, which I think is really cool, because I'm using those apps quite much. And I show them also this new thing I built, a document archiving solution in Teams.
Yeah, tell me a bit about that. I was listening to the podcast, one of your recent episodes, and you're talking about that. So, obviously, document management is still a big thing, and people and organisations are still sometimes just scratching the surface in what is available there, and there is. The files tab in Teams, and depending on how many teams you've got lots of different teams and channels and locations to try and look for, and especially around projects. And this is an interesting topic that you're starting to talk about, is around the document lifecycle management. So tell me a bit about what the problem is that you see, and I guess a little bit about what you've developed.
Yeah, so this requirement came from a company that has minor projects in Teams. They have another system for larger projects with like big budgets and stuff. But for short-term projects, they want to use Teams, of course. That's a perfect place to do this. And they wanted to be able to archive Teams after the project has finalized. So you don't have all these teams, laying around in Teams. We already have way too many when you're a member of, and it's hard to get that, like overview and structure. So I think it's a really smart idea to either archive the team or delete the team when something is ready. But then we have the problem that when you delete the team, you also delete everything connected to it. And this is something I've been wanting, an option I wanted since I saw this, that you could delete the team, the option to please save the SharePoint site with the documents on it. And you can't do that now. So then we thought, we want to store these documents from the project. So maybe the most important, the end reports, and maybe some documents from the project that we think we could reuse in the future, or we could take learnings from in other projects. So how can we do that then? And there is no option to do this out of the box. So I've set up a Power App that you connect into your Teams channel, and you move your files that you want to save from this project, you move them into a specific archive channel. And then I built an app there where you can set some metadata to the files. So you move all the files that you want to save into this channel, and then you run my Power App. And then that brings those documents, it moves those documents out of the Teams archiving channel into a document archive site, which is just a common static archive site on your intranet, for instance. And there the documents will be stored for a longer time. And what my script also does, or my flow, it's built, it's a Power Automate flow that runs when the user hits archive. It archives the teams automatically, so the user don't have to do that manually. And also it moves out the files then and tags them with all the metadata on this site. So they don't have to go in and tag those documents themselves. It's made by the flow. So,
that's interesting process, because I think that's a very common pain point that people have is the need, whether it's regulatory requirements or something that they need to keep those final versions of those documents from a project, which you can't do out of the box, and I think that also goes and showcases the power of the Power Platform, I guess, but the integrated applications that are part of Office 365 and the solutions that you can build on top of the platform itself as well, and how they integrate with each other, without having to dive deep into custom coding and custom development and all that type of thing. You can kind of, now I'm sure I'm not making this sound simple, but because I'm sure it's not, but using GUIs and web-based tools and things like that to be able to come with that solution.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a developer. I'm using PowerFX. That's a language anyone can learn. If you know Excel, you can also learn PowerFX, that we use in the Power Platform. And so this all works just fine. It has not taking me a very long time to build this solution. And also this inspirational workshop I was talking about last week, I just want to say that regarding citizen developers, those people will actually be that. It was like making citizen developers. And they came up with so many ideas of apps. I showed them this archiving solution and they were like, yay, we need this. I think it's a common requirement, as you say, like we can't remove all those documents because there's knowledge in there. And it's such a shame to just delete a team when you have all these documents and something that other people can learn from. But I mean, so you can do a lot without being a developer. It's low code, no code. And it's
absolutely.
not that hard to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It opens, and I'm big on helping, I guess, showing people how to save time and automate a lot of things as well. And it's funny when you start showing just an information worker the Power Automate templates and the pre-made things that are actually there for the end user to be able to do. For example, there's a Power Automate template that allows you, and Michelle Bowman from Microsoft showed me this as well, that allows you to schedule a meeting with the person that posted a message in Teams. So, and have that sort of thing automated. And, it might only be just a little minute, in that instance, it might only save you 5 seconds, but over the course of, if you bundle that together and over the course of, let's say 12 months, it actually turns out to be saving you a lot of time. And there's so many things that you can just automate the processes of, that you do over and over and over again with Power Automate that does that.
Yeah. And I mean, this thing with, just a checklist on and offboarding, when people come into the company, people are leaving the company. Just to build a simple Power App with the checklist of this needs to be done. And then maybe different emails can go to different managers. So the IT department should either create or remove an account and make sure that people are returning the devices and all those stuff. Just something that you can find that could be common in any company. To find those things. Absolutely. And it's so easy to create this. I have not dug into Dataverse yet. I'm using SharePoint Lists as of now. And it gives you this nice statistics also, because many times when you have maybe like things that you need to do repetitively, like you were talking about, like an app I built for managers that are out on building construction sites, and they need to do inspect this construction site and make sure that the health and safety is followed. They had like a simple checklist and a Power App, and then they just clicked on the red, yellow, green button to show the status and make some comments, and then easily just submit that into the SharePoint list, and they had the same red, green, yellow icons reflected in that list, and they could be like nice statistics over, how is the health and safety out on the site. And this is something that was maybe hard to get an overview if you do it in Excel or you do it maybe manually, which is even worse. I mean, to get those statistics, when you get them into a Microsoft list, like into a SharePoint list, you will soon get a nice overview to see, are we a lot of green or do we have a lot of yellow and red issues on our sites, which can be it can mean like life-saving stuff, like you can really get that nice overview. And then of course now in lists, we have this beautiful Power BI visualization
we do, yes.
option. Yeah. So, I mean, then you could just with a simple click from the integrate button, get some nice graphs of your lists also. So, I mean, all of a sudden you have a complete system and it has not been any code involved. It's just like you can build it yourself with some fantasy.
I love SharePoint lists. Amazing use cases with lists for sure. And that beautiful segue into this next thing I want to pick your brain about too, because as you know, I do love my SharePoint lists. But I was listening to I can't remember where I was listening to it now, but you were talking about Run with Radio. That's right. And you were talking about how how people may not create or make documents since they tend to be endpoints for discussions and other related work, but make lists with views instead and automate it so that the work continues to evolve. Now,
yeah.
Explain that to me. Explain that. What your thoughts behind that?
Yeah. So, I mean, this was on the show Runners Radio, which is run by Richard Campbell, and he interviewed me in that, and he wanted to talk about lists. And lists we've had in SharePoint since the beginning, but now it's its own app. So you can bring in Microsoft Lists into Teams. You can build a list straight from Teams. You have it as your own mobile app. It's like a free app now. But of course, you place it either on a SharePoint site or you can have it on your OneDrive personal site. But the thing is, we're still sharing information in this list, right? Even though it's its own app. And my beginning, when I thought about this comes from, when you have your file shares and you want to move your files into a cloud app like SharePoint or OneDrive. Then don't just move all the files without thinking. But instead, if you are aware, you have a lot of Excel files that are simple registers, it's just a list with, maybe it has licensing information in it with license name and when the date, when they are outdated. Nothing's going to happen inside that Excel file, right? Maybe we can do something smarter with this. Maybe we can remove this Excel file and instead import it into lists and make it into a system instead, so that we can use these date columns. And I'm thinking many IT departments has often asked me, can we somehow monitor when the licenses are going out? Because that's a common problem that happens. The IAS certificate has gone out and everything stops working. So quite an important thing. And so I always do this. I tell them that you should import it to a list instead. So we have like a column with a license name, and then you can have columns with other information also, of course, like what system it's related to and stuff. But if you also add a date column, like when this certificate is going out, then you would automatically get this built-in date reminder and notification that we have never been able to have in on-prem, but it's beautifully there in SharePoint Online. As soon as you add a date column, Flow will react and you will have a send a reminder option on the integrate button. So then,
because you can, and an end user can then configure it themselves. So it might be that one user might want to be notified 7 days before that date, or another user might want to be notified 14 days before. So it's what I love about that is that it's end user driven, and it doesn't have to be the same for every user, which is a really really powerful thing too.
Exactly, it's a personal thing. And you can, of course, also set up rules that's for the entire view, or list, so that it applies to everyone. But that's the cool thing now, that we can make those conditions and rules straight out the UI in our list. And I mean, come on, how much work did we have to do to get this red, green, yellow options, or just to have a small icon in our lists? And now you can just choose from the gallery of things that they are offering us. So we have so much more formatting options in our views now that makes this list kind of nice to look at also. They are not just boring text lists anymore. They are actually a total system.
That's right. And the collaboration aspect too. I mean, being able to share an individual list item now.
Yes.
Obviously, you're not going to be able to do that in Excel. You can't just share a line or a row in Excel, can you? So, that particular option there, just for that list item, is again something I see people use a lot over and over again. And the other one that I really love is being able to have a conversation around a list item as well.
Comment and
inside Teams.
Yes, that's fantastic. And you can comment on a row. And I mean, don't forget version history. You don't have version history on a row inside Excel. If someone has made a whoopsie, either if it's on a file share, you're gone. You need to do a backup option. If you have an
Yeah.
Excel file in a document library, yeah, you can restore an earlier version. But in lists, you have version history on each row in your list, which is fantastic. So, I mean, it's you get this system. And when you have this nice list, you could also think that maybe we should have like an app connected to this list. So why not build a nice power app to this app so it looks good on the phone? You could add some extra, I don't know, connections to other systems. Maybe this licensing thing needs to trigger something in another system, like a purchasing options, or another system where we are like monitoring these licenses. So with all these nice connectors you have in both Flow and in Power Apps, you could then reach other systems. So you can connect systems together with one app. So the user don't have to go in that system to check that and so on, So you can simplify their work life. That's one of my goals.
Yeah.
That's always my goal. How can we make this simpler for the user? How can we make this day more effective?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, especially your, after being involved in SharePoint for a long time, you're now, well, it's sounding like you're working a lot across the entire platform now. And have you got a favorite application as part of the platform that you're really enjoying working with and delivering those solutions to customers with?
Yeah, it's Power Apps.
Power Apps? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so powerful and it doesn't take long to get to know how it works, and you can have it in your mobile phone. So, I mean, it's easy to deploy an app to a large organization. And I build them very, with a nice graphic interface and almost a little bit gamification. It should be fun to do this. And that has been one of my requirements from people who are wanting an app. Like, it should not be just a boring one background color and some fields. No, we need to work with pictures and nice icons and, things happening in the app. So it should be fun to use it also. So gamification is totally something that's getting people to use the app if you make it a bit more fun.
Yeah. And just before we wrap things up, I mean, what, looking down, I guess the roadmap or what's coming in the future and things like that, what are you seeing as some really good features that are coming out, even if they've just rolled out now in Microsoft Teams or SharePoint in particular, that you're really looking forward to introducing to customers? I know one that's rolled out for me that is something small, but something that is highly requested and has been for some time, and that is replying to a message in Microsoft Teams. Now, that's one. I used to use my mobile phone or the iOS application in Teams specifically for that reason. So I might be at my desk, I'm using Teams, I'm in the office or whatever, but I'll still use the Teams application to reply to messages. But now we can obviously do that in natively now in the Teams desktop app. So that for me is going to be a game changer for a lot of people. What are you seeing? What are you seeing that's rolling out now or in the future?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I have two things. The first one is sharing your channel with external partners in Teams.
Yes. Yep.
So you can either share across channels or share with external partners a channel, so you can invite them into your channel. Because I think that allows me, I'm working with 7 different tenants. So if I can have one channel where we store all information, and then I can maybe invite external partners into that, so I don't have to be like all these unnecessary channels and teams that you're building. Now you can like more narrow it down and instead reuse the things that you have. So that would be a great option. And also, possibility to share across channels. So that's fine. That's one. And also I'm a little bit curious about the hub to hub association that we will be able to make, because right now you have one hub, maybe your home site is your hub. Obviously it's your hub, but I would like to be able to connect them together. So because I can see the purpose of having maybe like a project hub. You have your intranet hub, And then you have a project hub, and there you have a lot of project sites connected. But you may not want to roll out all the information from your project sites into your intranet hub. Maybe you want to have them a little bit separate, but still connected so that you can both search through all the hubs.
Yep.
And you can also, of course, roll up information from maybe current projects that are of extra interest on your intranet. But most of the project information is kept on that project hub. So you go to that hub to get all that information. Then you also have a better information architecture and structure on your intranets, I think. So that one I really look forward to. And how it would be with this, the mega menus and how they will collaborate with each other when it comes from different hubs and so on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the use cases and how people use that functionality for sure.
Yeah, but I think we are getting some nice things every day. Just recently the apply a site template was rolled out to SharePoint sites. So when you have created your site, you can go in and apply a nice site template that's already built for you. I try them. I think they look quite good. So you get a little bit extra with the content. Maybe, you get stuck in the same site structure. So then you can get some new inspiration. Oh, I can build a site like this instead. So I think they're bringing us some nice things to easily apply for the users also. So they don't have to come to us all the time to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There certainly is some great things coming. Now, Lise, thank you very much for joining me on the episode. On the other side of the microphone this time, I still got one episode where I need to catch up, so we'll have to organise for another episode down the track so that we're even. Now, for everybody that's watching and listening that want to engage with you and follow your content, as I mentioned at the start of the show, you do host your own podcast, and you're very active on socials and sharing a lot of insights and knowledge and content as well. So where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I have my podcast. It's WITGirls.podbean.com. And then I have my blog, which I have run since 2007. I share a lot of information there because when I run into a problem, I want to document it. So I remember how I solved that time. And I think sharing is caring, as you know, Daniel. So I think it's like often when I Google, I end up on my own blog. And I was like, yeah, that's the way I did it. So I think it's good to share information.
That's how I started as well, yes.
Yeah. So I think blogs...
Documenting.
Exactly. And I end up on other people's blogs all the time. So I think it's still a big, large forum to be on. So SharePointBabe.com is that blog on. So those are my two channels for sharing information.
Excellent. I'll post those in the show notes so everybody can get in contact with you, follow you on, and you're active on LinkedIn as well. So I'll post that throughout there too. But thanks. Once again, really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and some insights into your experiences with the Office 365 platform. It's always good getting insights into how people are actually using the tools and the applications and building solutions in different ways that spark interest and different thoughts in how solutions can be built using those tools. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's been a pleasure being on the show, and I look forward to the next one.